It's the Daily Brew. Okay, hold on a sec. I'm going to read a page of Young because I forgot to do it. Fucking fantastic. What a gorgeous thought. There are many symbols, among them the most important, that are not individual but collective in their nature and origin. These are chiefly religious images. The believer assumes that they are of divine origin, that they have been revealed to man. The skeptic says flatly that they have been invented. Both are wrong. And I'll add, both are right. It is true, as the skeptic notes, that religious symbols and concepts have for centuries been the object of careful and quite conscious elaboration. So, the creations of man. It is equally true, as the believer implies, that their origin is so far buried in the mystery of the past that they seem to have no human source. That is to say that they have been revealed to us. But they are in fact collective representations, emanating from primeval dreams and creative fantasies. As such, these images are involuntary, spontaneous manifestations, and by no means intentional inventions. And yet they are as well intentional inventions. Because, well, what makes your unconscious intent more valid than your conscious intent? Not much, as far as we can tell. In fact, it's perhaps quite a bit more powerful, given how your unconscious seems to be much more capable of guiding your actions than your conscious mind is. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Okay, good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday. I have to do Mushoku Tensei today, and I'm looking forward to it. I did just start getting people mentioning that they want a double episode for 16-17, and I had totally forgotten that that was supposed to be a thing, so I am not prepped out to do that or ready to do it, and so we'll fucking see, man. We'll fucking see, man. I don't know, but we'll see. Regardless, I've been thinking about symbols, as you might expect, and about representations and stuff, as you might expect, because that's what I've been doing. I did get a couple of really solid comments on the last one, so I want to mention those. I'll also mention that the basics list, which I'll put in the description again, is up and exists, and it's kind of mediocre. It's just the start of an attempt at a thing, but people are already contributing elements to it, and that's pretty good. Let me add squat, bench, deadlift, squat, OHP, row. I'll just drop that down as a link here. Diet, exercise, macros, all the basics are in here essentially, which is fan-fucking-tastic. I love this sticky. Okay, so I've dropped a link into for squat, bench, deadlift, squat, HP, row. Okay, so I've got the one. I don't have all the others yet. There's so much shit to put into this list, and as soon as we started articulating it, it becomes extremely difficult. Oh, that's a good fucking link. Holy shit. Okay, I didn't expect that to be a good link, but it's actually a good link. Wow. Okay, fast life hacks, Matthew Walker, 12 tips for good sleep. Not a bad link. I don't want to define it. I want to add a link. Thank you. Drink mostly water. Yeah, I found the hydration subreddit, but it wasn't useful. All right. Anyway, that's something. I've added 2 things to the thing, and I'm done. All right. I don't want to get distracted right now. I'm sorry for that. Symbols. They're cool. The basics list. It's up. Go contribute to it, please. That would be helpful. Make comments on it. You can as soon as you get the link. It's free. I made it totally free because I think it's some useful shit, and I didn't want to charge for it because that seems stupid and a great way to get people to not ever see the thing. So maybe in a couple years, when we've got a few solid 100 people who have done the things on the list and some feedback on multiple levels, maybe then I'll write a book and just take the thing and copy paste it into the book basically and just sell that for $1. Once it's been proven and useful and shit. For now though, it's free as fuck, and it should be, because this kind of information should be free. Information like, if you fix your sleep, your life will improve a lot. Like a lot. Oh, good stuff. Okay. I want to talk about social media as well. It's fucking killer. Let me pour my tea. I got yoinked into Tinder again. And that's I'm externalizing that and saying like, oh, it's Tinder's fault that it yoinked me into itself. That's not true. It's my fault for being weak, really. But hey, let's be honest. Your weakness is one thing, and the application's ability to produce massive, overwhelming dopaminergic temptation is another thing. And that's the reason that I don't play League of Legends anymore, or look at it, or plan to watch Arcane, or do anything to do with Riot Games, is because I recognize that It's my addictive tendencies that the game preyed upon, but it's a predator, and it was preying upon those tendencies for its own profit motives, right? Like, that's how the system functions. And Tinder is no different. Tinder is owned, by the way, by the Match Group. So let's mention that really quickly. Let's mention what the Match Group owns, because it's quite important. Because you probably, if you have dating apps, you probably have a few. And I have to wonder if you have, well, more than any. So Match Group owns Tinder, Match.com, Meetic, OkCupid, Hinge, Plenty of Fish, Ship, and Our Time. And they actually own over 45 total global dating companies. Match Group is a NASDAQ stock listed thing. Their CEO is Bernard Kim. Their revenue is $2.4 billion US dollars with a net income of $188 million US dollars. Soulmates Technology, Match.com LLC, Meetic. Bernard Kim is doing great. I truly believe that love, connections, and relationships are the pillars to a happy life. And that's why I've created apps that totally do that. Because that's totally what they do. Not what they do. Oh, I know there are people who have met people on the sites, and they work to some extent. In fact, they're great at working in certain ways. They've gamified relationships, which is quite interesting, and especially in an era where we don't get out very much and see each other very much, the ability to go and find the people in your relatively nearby area who might be of a similar age to you and might have something going on in their lives that might be of interest to you, that's pretty good. But I think we changed the fundamentals of the way that our social structures work in terms of dating and relationships at our own peril. And I don't think that we've necessarily changed them in a bad way, and I certainly don't think that there's any way to change them back. I'm not a Puritan idiot, you know? And I think that there are a lot of Puritan idiots who are going like, Tinder is the devil, and it's killing us, and we need to go back to kids meeting in church groups. That's how kids should meet. It's like, yeah, well, kids meet in church groups and then they fucking get pregnant really early because you didn't teach them sex ed. So maybe that's not the move. But I do think there's something going on with these sites. And I don't really want to talk in the broad strokes that I'm already slipping into about how evil the dating sites are. I don't think that they are. I think that they work and they're interesting. But the way that Tinder is structured really does something to my brain. I mean, it really does something to my brain. It does the same sort of thing that Instagram does to my brain. Because I end up swiping through and scrolling through. First off, you're making this one binary decision about people on the face of it, which is literally on the face of it, which is exactly how you can make decisions about people. You can look at a Tinder profile and 90% of the time it's a yes or a no within half a second. 90% of the time. The other 10%, it's like, wait, what's going on there? And then maybe you have to go and investigate and check it out. But otherwise, you just know. At least I do. I see a woman on a Tinder profile, and I'll tell you in a second whether that's a yes or a no in any degree. And then there's that small 10% that's like, well, maybe. Well, maybe if. Well, let's find, that kind of thing. Or the girl that you see that's like, well, you see a girl who's real hot, and then she's got a thin blue line poster behind her, like, well, I don't know about that, man. Or in the profile it says, if you don't think ACAB, get the fuck out, you whatever. Or the people who are like, well, if you're vaccinated, don't talk to me about having kids. You see all that shit, and it's like, ugh. There are some people out there, and that's quite useful, is to be able to see people. And best yet, you get to see exactly how they represent themselves. Because what Tinder gives you, just like Facebook gives you this, or Twitter gives you this, or any major social media platform gives you this, is it gives you a set of tools that you can arrange kind of however you want within some boundaries, and you can arrange them however you want, and then that's the profile that you present to the world. It's a set of symbologies of self in the form of some images, maybe some looped videos, maybe some other things, and then a chunk of text, and then a couple of tags that are relative to you or whatever, supposedly. And seeing what people put on all of those things and how they represent themselves and what they're all about is pretty interesting. I think it's really interesting. It's like sociological depth and intrigue. You're looking at hyper-condensed self-representations of people. And so when you look at them, well, that does something to your brain, because I mean, just seeing an attractive person does something to your brain. Now, seeing an attractive person and getting to know a little bit about them, that does something else. How about seeing an attractive person and getting a link to their Instagram, and then you can go and see all of them in every position, in every direction, everywhere. That's pretty interesting. And then about 40% maybe. I don't know. I'd have to really spend some time checking, like doing tallies and really tallying it through. It's like 40% from what I've seen. Maybe 30%. Let's be generous. A third. Like a third of the profiles have an Instagram link or a Snapchat link. And then if you follow that out, the Instagram has a Linktree link or an All My Links link in the bio that links to the OnlyFans. And most of those girls, as far as I can tell, aren't actually using Tinder for the purposes of dating. They're using it as a funnel. So they put some sexy pics on their Tinder, and then they have you link to the Instagram. They put little eyes by it that are like, ooh, sneaky, sneaky, or a little chili pepper, or something along or a little peach, or something emoji related that gives you the symbol so you know what's going on. Because people know what's going on, and you'll figure it out really fast how the symbols line up. And the purpose seems to be to get you to go and pay for their OnlyFans, for their nominally empowering self-exploitation, which I have some issues with. I don't have issues with women choosing to sexualize themselves. I find it, and I think I've been quite clear about that in media. I really like sexual women. I think they're great. It's like, yeah, like, good. Way better than the alternative. But the idea that it's inherently empowering to put images of yourself nude on the internet and get men to pay for them, I don't know about that one exactly. I'd love to argue it. I'd love for people to come at me with different points of view. And I think what I'd love to do is to go and try to match with those people in particular, and to find them and try to speak to them. And speak to them about what the fuck they're doing and how they feel about it. And do so in a way that is open and willing to listen. Like really willing to listen to what they have to say and why they feel the way that they do. But also willing to step away from it and to recognize that people don't know broadly what they want or what's good for them. This is provable, because if you put a person in a room full of candy, they'll eat until they're destroyed unless they have some self-control. So people don't really know what's good for them. If they did, obesity wouldn't be such an epidemic. There are other contributing factors. It's more complicated than that, but by and large, people don't know what's good for them. And that doesn't mean that I do, because I don't even know what's good for me, let alone anybody else. But I wonder if it's good for them. I wonder if it's good for any of us. Because there seems to be something that happens to a person once they've commodified themselves. Once you turn yourself into a product like that, suddenly any interaction is one that's transactional, commodified. Now, there's an argument about that's like the commodification of your art and your creation, the things that you build. That's a different sort of a story, though, because that's something that you've created and it's separate from you. But to truly sell yourself, not even your labor, right? Your labor is your actions through time, but yourself. And I don't just mean images of yourself, because it's not just images of yourself. It feels like something else goes with them. And I see relatively frequently that it's not just images of the self, and it's frequently prostitution as well, which is really interesting. I'll just mention that. And again, I want to say that in general, I lean rationally sex positive and sex worker positive in part, and I think this is just a rational supposition, because when you ban sex work, first off, it's going to happen anyway, and it's going to get worse, and it's going to get way less safe for the people who partake in it. And it's going to happen anyway, so regulating it seems like better than banning it. It's like what they did in Portugal with drugs, as far as I know. All drugs in Portugal, illegal. However, decriminalized, and if you're caught with enough drugs to have an officer or somebody in the law do something about you, they recommend you to various forms of therapy and therapeutic rehabilitation in order to fix you and help you. That's pretty interesting. It's a little different than the way that we criminalize things in the draconian United States. Maybe a good idea, considering that the drug abuse and criminalization and incarcerations for drugs in Portugal are gone. Now, that said, Portugal is also a hotbed for drug trade, and that spreads out all over the place. And so maybe it's not the best thing in the world, but... And the same can be said of, like, Las Vegas, where prostitution is essentially legalized, and, well, it's a hotbed of some bad stuff. Vegas isn't a great city in a lot of ways, and it is a great city in a lot of ways, so I don't fucking know. But a lot of those girls have, like, a meetup link as well. That's like, oh, well, all you have to do is be in the area and video chat with her and, like, do a thing to prove that I haven't gone down any of these rabbit holes, so I haven't gone and tried to meet up with any of these girls, because that's not in my wheelhouse. I have never and will never pay for sex. It seems just, like, not the idea, not the move. I'd recommend avoiding doing the same yourself, I think. Although I don't have the experience to say what it would do to my mind if I did it, I can imagine it out, and turning something that I still can view as being important into something truly transactional could really hurt me. It could really hurt others around me for forever. So maybe not that. But it's such a large portion. I mean, maybe it's bots manufacturing these accounts with fake pictures, but I don't think so. That used to be rampant a little while ago, and it's become significantly less so, it seems. It seems like Tinder's been able to crack down on that, which just means, as far as I can tell, that the ones that are there are worse because they're real. They're all very real. Or better because they're real. I don't know. But I saw that there's this girl who goes to my gym who I don't find terribly attractive. I'm just not interested in her. Her body type isn't a type that I find inherently attractive. Everybody's different, right? But my roommate, whenever she walks into the gym, is like, whoa. I'm just like, I don't get it, man. What are you talking about? Which is a great thing, by the way, is that you can have two people look at the same person, and one of them goes, yeah, I mean, I get it. She's cute. And the other goes, oh my God, she's the most beautiful woman in the entire world. I don't see it, man. I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway, I saw her on Tinder. I was like, oh shit, that's that girl from the gym. I know her name now. That's cool. Well, that's creepy. Shit. If I ever speak to her, it's going to be very strange to be like, well, hi, I know your name and you don't know mine. You don't even know my fake name that I use on the internet. Sweet. Shit. But saw her there. She had an Instagram. I click on it and I go to it. I'm like, oh, that's very cool. What's she up? Linktree. Little chili pepper. Oh. Click on it, it's exactly what I thought it was. Okay. Interesting. Close out. Interesting. Because finding that out changed my whole perspective on that person. Now, maybe that's a flaw. Maybe that's a flaw. You know, she's a human being and a sexual entity, and she can do what she wants with her image. But the fact that she is selling her image, her nudity, even though I had no interest in her before, my interest plummeted. Absolutely gone. And maybe that's just me being, you know, my Puritan Christian bullshit, which I don't align with at all and am not. Maybe it's just that. Maybe it's just my unconscious and inherent bias against sex workers, you might say. Or maybe there's some inherent bias against sluttiness. Big air quotes around sluttiness. Because again, I think that women do more judging of sluttiness than men do. Men kind of like slutty women a lot, because we like sex. Seems more like women would be the ones to withhold slutty women, and there's evidence of this, that it's a self-censoring thing, slut-shaming is. There's good evidence around slut-shaming, mostly being produced and exhibited by women, but something in my brain changed. And I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to account for it. That's quite interesting. There's something else that's scary to me, and maybe this will come across as being scary in like a foolish and paranoid way, and that's fine. That's fine. I'm putting on hats, okay? I'm not fully identifying with any of these ideas that I speak necessarily. I'm putting on different hats and I'm trying them on and looking in the mirror and going, how does that fit? Now, OnlyFans, nominally, those images are behind a paywall and they're safe, supposedly. They get hacked constantly, and if you go and find any big name OnlyFans, you can go and find everything they've ever posted for free because it's been stolen from them. So that's something. You can also go and find all of my Patreon content for free somewhere because somebody has ripped it, which is quite funny, I think. Yay! It's almost like having made it. It's like, wow, somebody thinks my content is good enough to steal it when it costs so little? All right, sure, man, great. I don't have much issue with piracy. In fact, there's significant evidence that piracy improves the market penetration of your content significantly, and also the purchasing of your content, which is really interesting. Is that when films get pirated, they also get purchased more? It's like it's interesting. It's some weird stuff. You can look into some of the research that was done in Sweden and elsewhere around the pirate party and all that jazz, and the way that things have played out there. And I don't know enough to fully comment on it, but I think it's quite interesting. But OnlyFans stuff gets leaked and stolen all the time. Okay, so you're putting images that can't be taken back off of the internet, because once you put something on the internet, it is there forever. Those images are linked to you and who you are. And you're doing it in an era where our technology is middling. Our image recognition systems and our AI systems are middling. But all of the things that you post are going to be subsumed into the post-singularity grand AI. I don't know if you want your tits and ass to be a part of that exactly. I don't know that I want mine to be. But maybe I do. And I was thinking about this as an element too, which is that I believe in a possibility for a future. I don't believe in it, really, but I believe in a possibility for a future that's kind of outlined in fiction, in fictional representation and symbol and myth, by Accelerando by Charles Stross, which walks through in multiple stages the acceleration of technology and information technology as we approach and pass the singularity, the point at which essentially some degree of computing power becomes overwhelming compared to biological computing power. And I think we're nowhere there because, again, I think that our brains are wildly more complicated, dimensionally more complicated, order of magnitude more complicated than we are actually aware. But I think that the whole system of the global infrastructure of the internet is approaching the total complexity of the human brain or beyond it. And when you factor in the fact that there are infinite or billions of human brains attached to that system, well, then the whole thing is an order of magnitude more complex than the human brain itself. So that's pretty good, and that's part of the reason that our society is iterating so damned fast, is because we got this big global brain that's ridiculously smart and totally pathological and insane because it's having a seizure right now because it's just gotten attached to all the nerve endings, and it's still getting attached to a bunch of the nerve endings. It's going, and that's the way the world feels, and that's about right. The idea that Strauss presents is one of a truly powerful techno future where we can truly move ourselves into a digital landscape, not through VR or virtual reality, but through mapping of the brain's systems and reproduction of them in digital space, giving humans essentially truly awakened control over their environments, as far as they have access to computing power and resources. And the whole thing is framed as a grand struggle for individualism against the coagulating tendencies of technological superiority and the mechanized organisms that are generated out of structures and rules into these fractal amoebic entities that crawl through the web. You get like a legal AI that's built to do a bunch of law and justice stuff, and it's loosed on the internet. And you get a porn gathering AI that's a multifaceted corporate entity with all sorts of arms in all sorts of places, and it's loosed upon the world. And there are all these different systems loosed upon the world, and amongst them is human consciousness still trying to exist and figure out its way. And part of the idea that's presented in Accelerando is this concept that anyone who has sufficient works in the system, that is to say writings or video or art or media or things that they've created, has put enough of themselves out there into the grand zeitgeist, the overall flow. Anyone who's done that, you can essentially say no individual except an individual who was structured this way could possibly have produced this work of art or writing or fiction or whatever. And so from their works and from their art, you can you can trace their consciousness and how they must have been structured in order to produce that person. And so the idea that's present there is that if you contribute sufficiently to mankind, in the future, there will be an AI that, like Laplace's demon, is powerful enough to look back upon your works and regenerate you, and for you to be reborn. There's an interesting issue with that, which is that, well, what if there's no picture of your dick on the internet? Because as far as I know, I don't think that there are any pictures of my dick on the internet. So what's it gonna be? If I get regenerated by the AI goop, is it just gonna be a fucking hole, a void? Is it just an area of non-being, of nothingness? Maybe the AI will be smart enough to articulate perfectly exactly what my dick will look like based on my nose, because that might actually be possible. But hey, I'm rather attached to the damn thing, and I'd like to have a good copy of it in the future when I'm resurrected by AI Jesus. I'd like to have a good copy of my pee-pee. This is a very silly conversation, I know. But you have to imagine that the girls who are posting all their pictures on Patreon are going to have pretty excellent three-dimensional imagery of their exact body shape and type, potentially at the exact prime of their life. So I was thinking, like, hey, maybe I should actually take some quality images of myself from different directions while nude. That would be an interesting idea. A stupid one, and one that I can dismiss rather quickly because I don't think it's necessary, but it is an interesting and silly rabbit hole that I decided to jump down and found very funny. But it did make me think. It made me wonder. How the women who are presenting themselves that way via OnlyFans and similar platforms, how they're doing. How they're really doing. Whether they feel like they're fulfilled, connected, living well. Because they don't seem to be. That's a big projection on my part, absolutely, and probably not universal. There are some who seem to be like hard like exploring their kinks and sexuality and figuring out who they are and stuff, and that seems pretty rad. But I see more of those on FetLife than I do on Tinder and looking for OnlyFans and whatnot. And maybe that indicates that that's where I should go to look for those kinds of people. Because they seem to be more interesting and more interested in themselves sexually. Because the ones that are on OnlyFans don't seem to be that interested in themselves sexually, by and large. They seem to be really interested in the money that they can make because of their sexuality. And so there's this layered self-exploitation thing that's going on. And it's framed as empowering. And it might be. It might be. But I'm hesitant to just take that claim as rote when sexual exploitation of women has been a rather large thing that women have been fighting against for a long time in various ways, which has always been interesting because, of course, women also sexually exploit themselves constantly, and we see that in Alina-Lise and Mushoku Tensei heavily. And again, when I say exploit, there's a negative connotation there, and I don't intend it. I really mean to make use of, right? And when you make use of someone else's sexuality, well, you use them as an object. And when you make use of your own sexuality, well, you use yourself to your capacity, and the two are very different. And so I'll say this, I think that the ability for women to exploit themselves sexually, to make use of themselves sexually on the internet, and to get direct benefits and rewards from it in a specifically negotiated, settled way where they put up the content that they specifically choose to put up, and they ask a specific price that they choose to ask for it, that seems a whole lot better than most of the pornographic and sexual exploitation industry has been ever. It's like women running the brothels is how it should be. If there should be I don't know if there should be brothel. I don't know, but I think it would be better for women to be running them than for men to be running them. That seems reasonable. But it's not self-evident that even a one-woman brothel where she owns herself and represents herself and makes all the choices for herself is the best path for a person. Well, I mean, in a lot of ways, what does it say to you? If you take that path, it says that your primary value is in the things you haven't worked for. It's like I said a few days ago, I was talking to girls at the gym or figuring out something to say to them. I said I usually try to think of something to compliment them on that they weren't born with. Something that actually took effort, right? Because, well, to some extent, having a nice physical body takes some effort, but to a great extent, it doesn't matter, actually, what your body looks like very much, because you seem to be capable of finding men who want to fuck you regardless, because men are horny monsters. It doesn't seem to matter very much, but yeah, there's some elements to like, well, if you've got a really bonkers physique and you're putting pictures of that on the OnlyFans, that's pretty cool. And you see a lot of that in the men who are putting themselves on OnlyFans. Is like they turn their body into like a thing, and they're like, "This is look at my dick," and it's kind of how it is. It's like, okay. But I'm not that familiar with the men on OnlyFans because, well, first off, there are way less of them. And second, I don't browse men Tinder because I'm not seeking male partners. So maybe I'd have to ask some women or some gay men. Actually, I've got a couple of gay friends who I should ask. That's what I should do. Ask if they follow anybody on OnlyFans. Ask how they feel about it. But I just wonder. I wonder what it does to the person inside. Because what they're saying to themselves is that my primary value comes from something that I didn't do. Because you didn't do your body. You didn't really make it. It's you, and you should and can be proud of it, and happy with the way that it looks, and pleased by it, and perhaps unhappy with the way that it looks, and maybe you should make some changes to fix that, because you could be happy with the way that it looks and feels, and that's in a large part more than social construct. Being relatively low body fat and having significant muscle mass is health. It's not a fucking social construct. Get off your ass and move. Stop eating fucking chips and cookies. Stop drinking goddamn soda. Holy shit. But that's what it says, is that this person's value is in their sexuality, and that's about it. And that's always been the case for women in a lot of ways, hasn't it? That's not good, is it? But how do we fix it? I don't know. I don't think the answer is through Tinder. And so I need to delete the app again. But it keeps pulling me back. So I want to circle back around. I went on a long tangent, because that's fine. And I'm going to end this pretty quickly, because I want to move over to Mushoku Tensei, and we're already 40 minutes in. But it circles us back around to to the things that I find so appealing about Tinder, because one of the things that I find so appealing about Tinder is the process of self-representation that occurs. That I can go in and I can rearrange and re-alter and totally shift around my profile and have a different imagistic representation of me. And I can choose what I put on it from anything, basically. And totally change the way that I represent myself in the world. And then, assuming that the system is working, I can wait and watch and see whether people like that representation of me. And so there's this social proving that goes on. But I'm also very confused by Tinder. And it's contributed a lot to some potentially misaligned representations of myself inside my own head. It's like when I said not that long ago that I don't know whether I'm attractive, and I really don't. A bunch of people came in and were like, "Bro, you're all right. You're doing okay." It's like, yeah, I mean, I know that I'm doing okay, but the world doesn't actually reflect that to me. Well, if it did, I might be more successful with women. Or how about at all successful? Because I don't get right swipes on Tinder. Like none. And I don't know why. So it makes me wonder how many people are in that same boat, men especially. And it makes me equally wonder, of course, what the experience is like on the other side of the pond. What do women experience on Tinder? And what do Chad McChaddens experience on Tinder? And what makes them different? Because the data demonstrates that it's about 20% of the Tinder profiles on the male side are getting about 80% of the likes and matches. Pareto distribution, as you would expect. Well, what differentiates those 20% of the profiles? I don't know. And I haven't been able to find anyone who's effective at explaining it. So I'm quite curious about that. And I think maybe what I should do instead of putting the new wave of the thing away, because it's dangerous, because I think Tinder is dangerous to my brain. I think it actually hurts me to be on it. But maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. Maybe pain is an indication of a place to improve, as opposed to a place to run away from. And so maybe I should spend some time and mental energy investing myself in figuring out how I'm representing myself in the world and how best to represent myself in the world on various axes. Because I've spent a lot of time figuring out how best to represent myself as an art critic, anime watcher, YouTube reacto person. And I'm still in the process of figuring that out. I'm gonna be in the process of figuring it out for forever, probably. Which sounds great to me, honestly. It seems worthwhile, and it makes me get up in the morning, and I really enjoy doing it, and so maybe I'll do it forever. Maybe it's worth evaluating the way that I present myself as a potential sexual and romantic partner to the world, and determining what's wrong with me. Because it's really easy to look at the system of Tinder and go, it's broken, it's not working for me. But it's working for some people. So then maybe there's something that's broken in here, or in the way that I'm utilizing the application. And I'd like to know what that is. But then that's hard to do too, because it's more than just honest or embarrassing to share your dating app profiles with others and seek validation or criticism. It's like a window into the soul, almost. But when you get nothing, no responses, and no criticism, how do you manifest effective change? And you see this in the profiles that you scroll through too. Because there are those 30% that are here to grift, and there's a good percentage of people on Tinder that are there to grift. They're there to get you to go pay for their shit. And then there's a percentage that seem to be just doing great, having a great time, enjoying themselves, whatever, in various ways. And then there's a chunk that have given up. And they'll say some things in their profile that are like, well, guess I'm back on here again. I hate this place. This app sucks. Get me off. Back for another round. Hope this one goes better. About to give up. Ready to just end it. Fully suicidal ideation and language you see fairly frequently, or I see fairly frequently. So then what's going on for them? Because some of those girls are less than attractive, and I can see why they're not getting swipes. Or their representations of themselves are really bad, and their images of themselves don't show their faces because they're really embarrassed by themselves. And maybe they should be, because maybe they aren't attractive. That's fucking rough, man. I mean, I'm in a tough position of not being able to figure out how to represent myself as being as attractive as I actually probably am. Well, how about if you're in the rough position of you can't represent yourself, and the self that you're representing is not somebody that you like? Well, good luck getting somebody else to like you. That seems impossible. That seems just impossible. Because I like myself, and I have trouble representing myself as somebody that I like. Imagine if you didn't like yourself, if you fucking hated yourself. Well, maybe some of you don't have to imagine. Maybe some of you are there. I wonder what it does to us. I wonder how we'll shift in relation to it. I don't know. It seems complicated and scary. But maybe that's what I should do, is to take it more seriously. Because it is serious for a lot of people. And I think for a young man like myself, who knows somewhere in his brain that he's probably relatively attractive, like not an ugly monster. Women don't have contempt for me immediately. When I smile at a pretty girl and wave at her, she usually looks down and away and smiles. I don't know what the fuck that means, because I'm slightly on the spectrum, and I'm bad at reading those things, and I wasn't terribly well socialized in some ways, I guess. But you imagine what happens to a young man like that, who thinks that the world should reflect to them their abilities, and then it doesn't. And this is entitlement and all those things, but I'm thinking about the fucking incel black pills. Those are the people that I'm thinking about here. And so they start seeking out reasons why the system is flawed. Because it can't be them. It must be the system. Well, it's probably them, but how and why and in what way? I don't know. I don't know, because every time I look at all the here's how you structure a dating profile, they all seem stupid and wrong. Maybe what I should do is I should make just for the sake of science, make a female dating profile and switch it to look for men. And just scroll through and see what the profiles look like, because I have no fucking idea what men are doing. Or, oh, that's better. I need to go and get one of my female friends and ask her if I can watch her act on Tinder and see how she does it. And just sit there and go, okay, why'd you make that decision about that person? Okay, why'd you swipe right on that guy? What is about him that you were interested in? And figure it out from some perspective other than my own. Ooh, that would be compelling. That might be really interesting. Huh. But I don't know. All of this is sort of wild and fuzzy. But it's kind of the perfect conversation for Mushoku Tensei, a show that is nigh obsessed with sex and sexuality and representations of self in a sexual world. Near obsessed. But I'll say something else about the dating apps, is that they're really well structured to addict you. From the limited swiping to the way that they notify you of things that aren't notifications, to the way that they organize profiles even. I've started noticing that it's happening, that they're using the pseudo-random distribution of reward in order to generate more attention behavior. And so what will happen is you'll swipe through like 3 profiles that the app knows you're not attracted to, because it It's capable of doing all the recognition on all of the profiles and figuring out what you actually are interested in. And then it'll show you a glimmer of some beauty, and you'll be like, and then it's gone, and then nothing, 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 beauty, 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 nothing, 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 beauty, nothing, 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 beauty, 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 beauty. It knows, man. Oh, and I'm not just being paranoid. It's feed built. It's AI driven, and it's feed built, and it's algorithmic, and it's smart. It's really good at getting you to keep swiping and to feel like you're getting somewhere. And that makes it a very effective system. But effective at what? Is it effective at making, as Bernard Kim says, love, connections, and relationships? Or is it really effective at getting you to pay for bits and pieces of extra stuff in the hopes that it'll make you stand out or whatever? It's not self-evident that it's there to create more love and connections and relationships. That seems more like an externality, like a side effect. So maybe I should get entirely off of the apps and focus entirely on the girls that I meet in real life. Probably that's the way to go. But the world is changing and becoming more digital, and Tinder and OkCupid and stuff are really just the first wave, right? And so if I fall far, far enough behind on this first wave, God help me when the next wave comes and we're actually dating in VR or whatever, then it's just over for me, man. You're an old timer and a loser who doesn't know how the tech works anymore, and you're way beyond out of the system. And watch the acceleration occur outside of you while you die in meat space. So maybe that's the way to go, is to just step out of it, because it's addictive and self-breaking, and it messes with my dopaminergic systems. It makes it harder for me to focus, and it keeps pulling me in. I mean, it really makes it harder for me to focus on everything else, which is really interesting. Or maybe I should evaluate it very carefully and figure out how to win in the stupid game that's been placed, and thereby reinforce my capacity to win at any set of games. Because if I could win at Tinder effectively, well, that might do some things to my to my confidence in my ability to win at future complex, exploitative social media game systems. It might give me a better insight into what's going on sociologically with the people around me, and the people that I'm most interested in around me, which are the young men and women who are in my age group and below, who seem to be struggling. Because they seem to be struggling, and I'm interested in why. Everything seems so perfect around us, right? Abundance everywhere. And yet, contempt for being, that slimy old worm, slithers its way into the souls of the youth and infects them. And it infects them through their social interactions as much as it does through the news or their hatred of systems or the destructive iconoclasm or the rejection of the status quo or any of those things. It seems to infect them more through their social interactions, because the social interactions seem to be the place where salvation might be found, is in the self-other relationship. And we're parasitizing, we've got all these applications that are parasitizing the self-other relationship. And the fundamental one, the familial pair, the mating dyad, the reproductive system, social reproductive system, seems to be parasitized by these applications. And I wonder what the effects of those are, and whether they could be made more mutualistic, or whether you could bend yourself to more effectively fit the system and thus achieve some kind of harmony with reality. Because reality will march in its direction regardless. And you might be able to ignore all of the dating apps, but millions of people are not. I was thinking about this too. I had this revelation a while ago that was like, well, the girl that I want is probably not going to be on Tinder. That's not going to be true in a couple of years. Because everyone is going to be on one of those apps. Everyone. So to cut myself off from the ocean of potential, just because it's hard or because I'm bad at it, oh, that's cutting off your nose to spite your face. That's a little silly. So perhaps investigating it is the way to go. And perhaps trying to seek out and match with people who seem to be doing interesting things in the space, or uninteresting things, and just getting their personal opinions on why and how they're doing them, might be interesting. So, this is what I've been thinking about the last couple of days. And this morning, I haven't really opened the app. I did my breakfast. I listened to some music. I listened to some Juno Reactor. I really like Juno Reactor. Juno space reactor. Go listen to Juno Reactor. It's worthwhile as fuck. And I stayed off the app for today. But I think I'm gonna go take my cold shower. And before I do, I'm probably gonna sit down and take a poop. And while I'm taking a poop, I'm probably gonna open Tinder and I'm probably gonna swipe through 10 or 15 profiles at least. When I do, I'm going to think about each one really carefully. Not in terms of whether I date or fuck that person, but what they're trying to represent about themselves and how well they're doing at it. Sort of look at their profile as an art piece, a representation of self, and evaluate it as such. And see what I can figure out, if anything. Because there might be some interesting information, maybe some insights to find in there. But I don't know. Regardless, it's our levels of connection have gotten so universal, which is amazing. And yet, on so many levels, they feel deeply cold and harsh and disconnected as opposed to connected. That's kind of odd. Something to push against, maybe. Something to push against. And so I'll push. And I'll make sure that I push hard enough that it breaks me. Because when you push against the wall hard enough that you break, that's how you grow. And you push the wall out wider, and you expand your boundaries, and you expand yourself, and you become something new, and you incorporate new information, and I'd like to incorporate some more new information. So I'll do that, and I'll go take my shower. And then I'll come back here and I'll watch some Mushoku Tensei. Maybe one episode, maybe two, I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching this brew. It's been a weird meandering one with some weird thoughts about some weird things, and so be it. If I follow up on the ideas here, I'll try to let you know. And if I ever find a good guide on how to make an effective social media profile, that's something that will go into the basics. Because the ability to represent yourself effectively in a way that people might actually approve of you, and you might actually get some recognition from the opposite sex or same sex if you're interested in them, might be very useful to a bunch of young people who don't know what the fuck is going on in the world. It might be great to have a simple set of rules for fucking creating an acceptable profile. But I don't know what they are because there's a bunch of contradictory information out there. I don't think that it's evident that things that work for Chad McChadden will work for you or me. Or that things that work for me will work for you. But there must be some degree of principle that might be more effective than not. I just don't know what it is. And I'd like to investigate it. Okay, thanks for watching this brew. I'll see you tomorrow for another one. Today is Mushoku Tensei, tomorrow is Gundam. Peace, and I mean it.